That's one of the things I tell the new guys, new officers. Let them give you a nickname. That means they kind of respect you in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
They know that you know who they are.
Unless it's dickhead or something like that, right?
Unless they wave with one finger, like, hey, that's that guy again.
You are now listening to On the Beat Podcast.
And here we are again, episode 3 of the On the Beat Podcast with Lou Maroto and John Riddle. How you doing, Lou?
I'm doing great. How you doing, John?
Doing good. A little warm, but
don't mind the sun beaming on us.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
We're just trying to get fancy. I guess we're trying to get fancy.
Yeah. So we've got new digs. All right, new digs here. It's a pretty cool place. I mean,
it is.
For those that are looking at us right now, it's a big warehouse, and it's broken up like movie sets, kind of what I look at it as, right?
Yep.
And each room around the whole warehouse is for people who want to come in and do their business, either studying or running business on computers and laptops, doing podcasts like we are. And it's a really cool modern way to do some shit here.
I believe a lot of people call it the Wynwood building. How in
Miami stuff? Okay.
Yeah, because of the decor outside.
Yeah.
Right, multicolors.
The multicolored building.
And then as we were talking about on the inside, it's like paintings and artwork, and it's not just black and white, two colors.
Right.
So it brings out a little different vibe. They have music playing in the background if you like.
Yeah.
But it's a nice spot, downtown West Palms, but it's a nice spot.
It is. It's cool.
So
it's cool.
Again, we are excited. This is number 3.
Number 3, yes. So I think today we discussed in our pre-planning that we were going to talk about continue this flow, right?
Yep.
In law enforcement, since that's what we are, and what it was like on the street, starting from day one.
Yes.
Right? And, you're out of the academy. You're out of FTO, Field Training Officer Program, which is a 16 to 18-week training program where you're riding with other law enforcement officers that are trained to train you. And then you have to pass that schooling. And after that, you get cut loose on your own, and you're given a beat, and you have to go out and ride that beat and answer calls. Now you're a policeman, and you're out there by yourself.
Now, excuse me, one thing that I want to add is, like, our FTO program is very, very strict, very entailed. It's not like, it's not as, I'm not going to say easy, but it's a little bit more demanding nowadays than it was when I went through.
Good.
These, not only do the new officers on the program have to put in a lot of work and submit the reports, and they're constantly being, graded on their performance. But the actual FTO officer has to complete daily logs on that specific officer's, on his trainees' actions, how he acted with people, communication skills, safety, right. Officer safety skills.
His DOR, right?
Yeah, his DOR.
Daily
observation, correct.
Yeah.
So once that officer has completed that program, he should be ready to now handle that first call.
There you go.
So,
do you remember yours?
I do. I think we talked about it a little bit.
Do you remember your first girlfriend, Lou?
Yes, I do. I'm married to her now.
Good for you. Not many of you left.
No comment. Hey, this is going to be live. I feel like I'm on stand. But yeah, I remember my first call. It was a 49. It was an alarm, a silent alarm, and I was riding south of Banyan. And the call went out something to the nature as like 1100 Old Okeechobee Road. I understood or interpreted that as Okeechobee Boulevard. So I literally ran up and down from Flagler to 95, Flagler to 95 on Okeechobee, looking for like the 1100 block. And finally, one of the guys that worked that area, or my zone partner, sent me a text on the Digi. Remember the old computers we had?
Yeah.
Which not everybody had that computer.
Right.
You were lucky if you were assigned that vehicle with an experienced officer, somebody who has some time. And he sent me a message. He goes, "Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Meet me at Old Okeechobee Road." And then it clicked, and I was like, oh my God, I was riding up and down Okeechobee Boulevard thinking it was Okeechobee Road.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
But yeah, I was sweating bullets. That first alert tone, beep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it going to be a silent alarm, or is it going to be a robbery, a carjacking? You're like, holy cow.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. What about yours?
A very similar experience. Midnight shift, and I was riding up in the north end of the city, and brand new, first night out. Everything shiny.
Flossing.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there and just looking around. Like trying to be as aware as I could of my surroundings, and then all of a sudden that tone went out.
The pucker factor.
Yeah, slam shut. and it's like, oh shit. And then it was my zone. They called me. I was the first one to get called. So papers are flying in the car. I'm looking for at the time, we didn't have the computers like kids do today, right? I do call them kids. But we had a book.
Your zone map.
With our zone maps,
yes.
Right? So I have to find, where I'm going. And I'm looking in the zone map, and it's like, I remember mine was golf.
Okay, Golf Ave.
Okay, yeah. There was two of them.
That's right. Golf Road.
There's two of them. Same, right? So I'm like, oh shit. Okay, wow, it's kind of a little far for me in my zone. I wonder why. So I'm brand new. I put it in gear and I go. I get down there. I go.
Where's everybody?
I arrive. Yeah, where is everybody? Yeah. And at the time, we had a canine sergeant who was working midnight shift with us. And he arrived, and I'm out of my car, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, again, where is everybody? And then somebody came over the radio. Hey, you're at the wrong golf. I'm like, well, where the hell is it? And they give me directions. They gave me directions over the radio, and I took off, and it was a school.
Right.
So we got out there and checked the school. But I think something like that, you look back at it now and you laugh about it, right? And but at the time, man, like you said, that pucker factor that we get when that happens, because you don't want to screw anything up. It's your first night.
It's your first night.
It's your first night, man. You want to come out of there like the knight in shining armor, right? Wrong. So it's but it was. You look back at it. I look back at it now. I laugh.
Oh, absolutely. It's a good memory.
And and I hate to say it, but that was the first time. I wasn't the last.
Well,
It wasn't the last, because then when you get shifted around to different zones, you have to relearn that zone. And it's like, so you have to take it upon yourself to drive around and look around and become familiar with it.
Like in our city, the north end is actually a lot easier to get around.
Number streets.
Because it's numbers, right?
Yeah.
But once you hit the south end, it changes, especially some of those streets along Flagler, near Forest Hill in that area, Washington.
Yeah.
It can be confusing, especially if you're trying to set up a perimeter.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, nowadays we have the luxury of just tapping the screen. It shows you the map, and you can pretty much set up the four corners just by looking at the map.
Nice.
You know?
We had to, when I was on, we had to go by the stars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you really had to legitimately know the beat.
I still have that book.
Do you really?
The
Keep it, frame it.
The map book.
Mm-hmm.
I actually show it to when we get the new trainees coming in the service. One of the guys teaches radio procedures. Mm-hmm. So I bring out the book and I go, this is how we used to learn the streets, 900, 1100 blocks,
Yeah.
The deeper you went south,
Mm-hmm.
or et cetera.
Odd sides, even sides.
Yeah,
with house
correct.
addresses. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, it's I'm sure it's happened to everybody.
Sure. It happens to everybody. It's just nature of the beast, when you're learning.
And you know what? You organize your car. It looks so pretty that first day.
Oh yeah.
Like this is where this is gonna be at. This is where that's gonna be at. Flashlight holder. Back then we all had the
Big mags.
the mag lights. This is gonna be put. But once you get that first call, and like you said, luckily it wasn't like a major alarm. I'm sorry, a major incident. Maybe an officer needing help or a shots fired call. That we can laugh about it, but we learn from it.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. I think you got to learn from it. Like, okay, I need to get serious and learn this beat because I'm going to be here for a while.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's and like I said, it's you have it happen to you once. Believe me, it's not going to be the last time.
Right.
But as you progress and mature in the job, you start to learn, and you figure things out. It's just with time. That's all.
And I think you say a key word: mature on the job. Because you have to have fun to enjoy this career for 30 years, possibly. 25 to 30 years, whatever. You can't be going to work miserable, right? This is what you pick to do as your profession. This is your money maker. So you got to have some kind of fun. Have the times change? Absolutely. Certain things that we could do back when I started, when you started, you can no longer do it.
Right.
So there's some constraints, but I think you can still enjoy the job. Being professional, discipline. And again, maturing as the days go by, you mature a little bit more. You get to know the people on the street, know the business owners, stuff like that.
Yeah. The more you can learn about where you're working, the zones you're working in, the better you're going to be. Right? Like you said, just the topography, or the, getting from point A to point B, meeting people, business owners that you can get to know on a first name basis. And then knowing the people that are out there, they're up to no good, right?
Absolutely.
And knowing their names, learning their names, and I'll be honest with you, I sucked at learning names, so I kept a card box. And this is before we were allowed to do this, or not allowed to do this. I should say.
I know where you're going.
Okay. I would fill out the FI cards.
Yes.
Okay. And I had back in the day a Polaroid camera.
Yep.
And I'd snap a picture of them, and I'd make 2 cards. Am I going to go to jail for this?
No.
I would make 2 cards. One I would turn in, and the other one I would put in my box with a photograph.
Yep, absolutely.
And man, did that come out handy in so many issues, out on the street, and not only helping me learn people, their names, but if the detective division had something, and I said, "Is it this guy?" And I had a picture of him already, with the my card, my info card, right? So that was just a trick, I guess you can call it a trick of the trade that I did for me to help me learn who people are, because it's the more you know about what's going on out in that area you're working in, the more you're going to be able to keep it nailed down.
I tell you what, excuse me, what worked for me was instead of I originally started with keeping the FIs in that little black box, right? But when I started working for a different unit, where we were constantly in contact with the guys that were selling dope and doing the bad things, I built myself a binder, and in that binder I labeled the north end and south end, and then I put tabs in between it, and from say 7 and 10, all the major spots, all the way up to the north end, and every FI that I did, as soon as I got back to the police department, I would run upstairs to CID and I would pull up the data sheet. So I put that data sheet in that binder.
Here you go.
I actually ended up giving that to a person that got fired.
Probably still has it.
They probably still have it, but it was those guys are probably in jail, moved on, or maybe dead. I don't know.
Yeah.
But these guys were happening back in the 90s. So,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, it's a plethora of knowledge, you know.
Yeah.
And especially these guys know that you just took a picture of them, or that you have the information. You know, the first name, last name, date of birth. They might think twice about doing some harm to you in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, and they lay low, you know.
You know, and they'll call you by name, whether it be Riddle, Maroto, Lou, Chico, whatever name they give you.
Right.
That means there's some kind of respect there. So that's one of the things I tell the new guys, new officers. Let them give you a nickname. That means they kind of respect you in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
They know that you know who they
Unless
are.
it's dickhead
Yeah.
or something like that, right?
You know, unless they wave with one finger, you know, like, hey, there's that guy again. Which that never happened.
No, that never happens.
You know. But what else? Now, once you get right, you're on the road, you're by yourself. Will people help you? Will people will other officers help you build a foundation for yourself while you're there?
Oh yeah, it's, you know, and like what happened to me when I got lost on that first night, that first call, you know, guy came over the radio and said, "Hey, it's the other one. You got to go down this way." And actually dispatch was able to hear that, and they helped me also get there, right? So I'm getting it from high above from dispatch. But your zone partners, guys or gals that are riding next to you,
Yep.
in their own areas, okay? If they're seasoned, if they know what's going on, in my eyes, they should step up. They should step up and help the new guy, you know, because look, you're gonna be with him if he lasts this whole career and you last the whole career. You're gonna be with him for a long time. So you might as well get to know each other, help each other out. Guy gets lost, help him out. If he's screwing something up, step in, try to intervene, okay, and make some corrections. You know, hey, bro, look, this is what's happening, okay?
Right.
We're watching you. You know, we're not your FTO. You're out on your own net right now, but you're kind of dragging your feet in handling your zone. And I'm always in your zone, and then I have to go to my zone. So I'm getting double the work tonight. It's a Friday night. I've got 15 reports.
Sure.
You know, and 7 of them are in your zone, you know, so how about picking it up a bit?
Yep.
Right. And peer pressure, it works. It works. I've been on both ends, and it'll get you moving, you know.
I think your zone partners, they're gonna help you, knowing that you're new, right? But they're only gonna do that for so long,
Right.
right? You got to break ties.
Got to cut the cord.
You know?
You know, it's look, you're out here now. You've gone through all the schooling that you went through, and you went through the field training officer program. You made it out here. Okay, you're out here on your own now. Now the test comes from your peers. If you prove yourself to your peers that you can do the job, okay? And I looked at people, you know, you can handle your zone. You train. You can control your fear in certain areas, okay? And you train, right? So because I want somebody next to me that knows what's going on. You know, if I had a guy next to me in the early days who was a SWAT guy, I was like, okay, this guy, he trains, he knows what's going on, or he should know what's going on, right? So I was happy to have him there.
Sure.
You know? But if I had a guy there that did nothing but bitch and complain and do the least he could do, then
Now you're pulling double duty.
you're pulling double duty, and then we have to sit down and have a discussion.
You know, and I think another thing that's important is if you're that new officer and people are helping you out, don't take offense to it if somebody steps in, say during a domestic violence dispute or something like that. If that experienced officer sees that you're kind of losing it, you know, you're losing control of that situation, and they step in and they cool everything down, don't take offense to that. Learn from it.
Absolutely.
Because the next time you get that situation, now you know what you did wrong and you can correct it.
Absolutely. And it's in that job that I learned in 28 years of doing it is things are always changing. Laws change, procedures change within the agency, right? So we're always learning. Nobody out there, I don't care how long you've been out there, knows everything. So yeah, pay attention and don't take offense if somebody knows a little bit more than you do and they step in. It's just part of the game until you learn it.
Absolutely. And then, you as an officer, you can be as proactive or as reactive as you want to be, right? You can be that guy or girl, officer in general, that goes in service and then kind of hides underneath that bush for the next 10 hours until they call you. Or, depending on the volume of calls coming in from dispatch, you can go out there and try to be a little proactive, right? So that just depends on that officer and your motivation.
Right. And look, 99% of the time, we're reactive. I think it's very few and far between, in my personal opinion, that we always, every single night, are catching burglars. We're catching drug deals go down, right? We catch the guy who just committed a homicide. It's not always, okay? It's very few and far between we do that. And that's why there's investigators and there's, cases that are being worked, because we're not everywhere all the time, okay? So, you do the best you can and work with each other out there, So
it's important. Excuse me. I think both our allergies are kicking our butts today, but it's important to stay humble. Because if you go out there thinking just because you passed FTO that you, like you said before, we don't know everything. But if you go out there with that mentality, I got this, it's going to take 2 seconds for somebody that you come in contact with that doesn't care to kind of humble you down a little bit. And then you're going to hope that your zone partners are kind of pep you back up and bring you back up, because they know they saw what just happened. This guy in the corner, he belittled you a little bit, whatever. Your ego kind of got twisted a little bit. So now you still got 10 hours to go. We can't drive around moping around, right? Because you still got other calls to handle.
And I think if you understand that each shift when you get into the car, that can happen. And, you just have to be able to control your feelings. And this isn't a job where if you get your feelings hurt easy, if you're thin-skinned, this isn't a job for you.
Right.
All right. First of all, out on the street, if you have thin skin and you're going against these people that are out there, they're going to cut you apart. Right. And then on top of the abuse you take from fellow officers, right, in joking around and, just having the fun stuff. If you have thin skin, you're not going to last.
Yep.
So let's start with on the street and, like you said, deal with it. Just friggin' get over it, handle your case, move on. Don't mope, because it's going to happen again.
I know it's happened to me, where you end up going home, after you do your shift, but somewhere in that shift, you got checked, right? You got checked by this guy on the street, and it hurt the cortisone a little bit, it broke your ego a little bit. So now you go home and you're like, man, that was a rough one today. And it was just really one person that broke your heart, that broke your ego that night. Yeah.
Get your heart broken out there, Lou?
God, yes. I've been checked a couple of times.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to say
it happens. No, it happens to everybody. It does. It's just how do you handle it? That's all.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I still got to go back the next day.
Absolutely.
And then I just learned how to talk to people then. I was talking to people the wrong way. And like I think we mentioned before, that old mentality of me pointing the finger at you, telling you to get off the freaking corner.
Mhm.
That doesn't work anymore.
No.
You know, you got to find other other types of communication. You got to use some communication skills.
Yeah, it's very touchy today. You know, everybody gets their feelings hurt over everything. So, you being a policeman, if you're an old school cop, street cop, yeah, you got to kind of take those things and put them in the back seat, right? And you got to start learning. And I think that started really when verbal judo came out. What was that, in the 90s?
Yeah.
You know, that was the big thing on teaching officers how to speak to people on traffic stops, right? Or out on contacts, just being out on foot and making contact with people. And you actually have to teach everybody in our profession how to speak to people, right? And I don't know. I liked the class was good, but I never had that problem. I never had that problem of not speaking to somebody the right way. I'm not saying I was 100% every day, sir, ma'am. No. A lot of times,
you had to kick it up.
Yeah,
to get your point across.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a time.
Yep.
There's a time when to do that. It's not because I wear this badge that I can drop the F-bomb on you, Mrs. Jones, anytime I want to. Okay.
Sure.
It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And I always said the more, in interviewing bad guys who hurt people, who hurt cops. Why did you do this to that officer? He disrespected me. That's like one of the top answers of these guys that are in prison. He disrespected me. Okay, so yes, there comes a time you may not respect them because of what they're doing, but you have to show that kind of topical until you get your job done. You got to swallow that pill. And for some people, it's a very large pill.
Yeah. I tell you, one of the things that helped me, being, from New York, was the lingo, how we spoke, in New York.
That's a different country, isn't it? Where is that?
You don't go there today. Actually, with Florida is having some issues right now, so I think New York you can fly to New York now. But seriously, coming from New York and being around friends of mine, not all of them were angels. And I'm sure you're coming from Philly, you had the same thing.
I was in that pot.
We were on that fence line, right?
Sure,
You could have went left, you could have went right.
Sure.
But luckily, what I learned from the streets in New York, I used and I applied that as a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
Not the best stuff, but just learning how to talk to people,
right. Yeah.
And just certain words, that you may not find in our dictionary, but they still understand what I'm trying to bring across.
Right.
And I think for me, that helped me big time.
Yeah.
So, I think, all right, so we got out of the academy. You got officers on their own, preparing for that first call. They get the first call. They may make mistakes. They may not. How do we get for them to continue to better themselves, whether it be traffic stops, other things that you can do when you're trying to be proactive?
Well, like I said, and as you know, and people that we know that listen to this, I'm big on training. I'm huge on training. And in law enforcement, when you're in a job that can take your life at any minute, you better be training. You can't be sitting back and having the mindset that nothing's going to happen to me. Okay? So when on the street with new guys, what I used to do as a supervisor when we had some downtime, I would get a handful of my guys, not everybody, I'd break it up, and I'd get them to meet me someplace, and we would do some training. I'd find an abandoned house, teach them how to approach the house, how to clear the house, how to clear rooms, how to move through the house. Grab a couple police cars, stack them, make a traffic stop, and show them, the proper way of approach and where to stand when, at the time we were handwriting tickets. Okay.
Right.
So now everybody knows how old I am. Right. So we're handwriting tickets. We're not on that computer. When those computers came out, man, I said, you know what? It's going to get guys killed. And because they're going to turn around and have to go back, they have to sit in their car and they have to write their ticket. And I never bought into that, but back when we were handwriting tickets, I showed them, try standing here instead of here. Get out of your car. Don't go back to and sit in your police car. So we would drill that. I would take the guys that worked in my platoon and we would train. And every time we had that chance during slow days, slow times during the day, I would gather them and we try to do some things.
And I think I told you before, there's still supervisors out there that still carry on that tradition of when it's slow, they may grab a bunch of guys, whatever shift they're working, north or south, and kind of do the same thing.
Yeah.
Let's practice going into some old doors,
Sure.
some room clearing.
And I believe if they're not doing that, if supervisors are not doing that, they're giving their guys a disservice. Because we know law enforcement training under the roof is only specific certain things, right? So the supervisor who has a little bit of a training background, no matter what it is, a little bit more wisdom, he can take them outside of what goes on under the roof and take them just a little bit further, to make them better, to make these younger guys better. So I think the training not only lies in the supervisory position in the training division from staff, it trickles down to the training division and then to the supervisors out on the street also.
I wanted to mention it before when we're talking about like your first call and everything. How many times have you heard that alert when they're trying to raise you on the radio?
Oh yeah, yeah, been there. The tone goes out and it catches your ear, gives you that factor again, like what's going on, and then it turns around. Well, they're looking for me because I'm not paying attention to the radio. Right.
And then the next thing is what?
Yeah,
Call your supervisor.
Call the boss.
Another thing that I wanted to mention was, like today, this time, society's, like I recently got put back on patrol, TDY.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty cool that there's officers that are working those beats already, and you're kind of just throwing amongst them because they need you for manpower purposes, whatever, that you can still rely. Because, some of us haven't been on the road in umpteen years, and now you get thrown back into the fire, and it's tough, trust me. A couple of days I've left that police department stressed out a little bit. But it's cool that there are officers there. That's why I always say never burn a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I burn bridges with, say, those 5 other police officers that are working near me, when that hot call goes out and my head is spinning around like a top, they don't have to come. From the day one that I went back to the road, the first call was like a stabbing. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I didn't know which way to go, left or right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they all kind of came together. Hey, I got the crime scene log. I do this. I'll do that. This is what you need to do. Boom, boom, boom. And
there you go.
It eases the...
Training the trainer.
Yeah. Hey, listen to me. I always say it to this day. I said, I'll never forget the people that helped me.
Mm-hmm.
Shame on me if I did. But I said, if I could do something for you in the future, please call me, and I got you. So.
Yeah, but, and you were TDY there how long?
No, I'm still there. Hopefully, another 2 weeks or so, maybe I'll be back to my regular position in training.
Yeah. So, look at it like, I'm in the training division full time. They got me down there TDY, and now I'm seeing firsthand what these guys are doing, right? And now maybe you can, when you get back to training, you can take something that you saw out there and make a training block out of it. You know,
Sure, because
you can look at it
let me
that
tell
way,
you,
right?
the paperwork, everything has changed so much.
Sure.
You know, remember back in the days we had a missing person, just grab a picture, right? You did a hot sheet and you send it upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Now everything's email right there. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, you can do everything in your car.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go to police station unless you
Sure.
have to do a personal.
Yeah. There you go.
But it's stuff that it's been a learning process. I almost feel like I'm an FTO right now because I'm still learning.
Sure.
And I'm out there in these streets and I'm thinking of, okay, what happens if I have a dead person call, right? Attended, unattended. It's been so many years, and again, all that stuff you can do in your vehicle now. So I'm constantly asking questions, and I think that as any person, any new officer out there, that's the same thing that you should be doing. It's asking questions, as many questions you can from your zone partners. You know, having them explain to you, okay, listen, I remember this from FTO, but and now this is real life. If I get this type of call, how should I handle it? What do you recommend? What do you suggest? You know, so kind of beat what's the word I'm looking for here? Kind of beat the fire. You know, get in front of the fire before it happens.
Yeah. Try to learn as much as you can. Like you said, you were tested in the academy with scenarios. You were in the FTO program, where during the FTO program, it's guided chaos, so to speak. You know, when things really got bad, then your FTO would say, okay, you're going to stand here and direct traffic. Okay. And then they would go do something else. Right. But now that you're out on your own, you may not. And again, the FTO program is not 100. You're not going to handle everything that there is to handle in the FTO program. You're going to get a good amount, but you're not going to handle everything. So it's just a matter of, something comes up. I know what to do here. I know what to do here, but this area here is kind of blank. What do I do here? And that's when you got to team up with the guys that are out there with you. Be careful on who you team up with, right? Because you always have some of those people that are like, nah, you don't have to do that. Don't worry about it. They shortcut it, you know? So you want to be with the guys that at the stage of your career, when you're out at the beginning by yourself, you want to be with the guys that go by the book.
Sure.
You know, shortcuts, things like that. You'll learn shortcuts as long as you're doing it the right way, but you've got some shortcuts that you can take. Have at it. But I wouldn't do anything like that until my second year. You know, I'm starting my second year. I'm off of probation, and I'm not just because I'm off of probation, but because I'm a little bit more sure of myself, and I understand it a little bit more. Make sense?
No, absolutely. Let's talk about the stresses of the job.
Police work.
Yeah, police work. You know, for many years, I don't think, even PTSD was considered part of police work, right? PTSD primarily came from guys that were in the military, right? Guys that were in combat.
We didn't really even, back in the day, back in my father's day, Second World War, it was like shell-shocked, right? Today, I don't think we heard of PTSD until the Gulf War, right?
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that?
Somewhere in that area, maybe past that.
Yeah, a little bit further
Yeah,
up.
more, late 90s maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's
right
when
around that area there, right? Yeah.
When they started kind of putting them both together. Okay, these guys go, especially when they interviewed people that are involved in violent encounters, shootings, right?
Yeah.
Deadly force encounters.
Mm-hmm.
But you tell me, how do you think they dealt with it back in your era compared to now?
Yeah, I mean,
if you got involved in a deadly force encounter
Uh-huh.
back in 1985,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what kind of programs were you offered back then to try to cope if you needed to cope with anything mentally?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, but let me say this first. You know, PTSD. We heard from, like you said, a little bit. I don't know, first quarter of Iraq and Afghanistan, right? Guys are coming back. They had to have issues because of what they've done or what they've seen.
correct.
Nobody has ever, at that point, nobody ever looked at it in law enforcement work. You know, it was, we go, we do our job, and we come back, and man, you know, that Maroto guy, he can do some drinking, right? Or that Johnny Smith, he can do some drinking, right? And everybody in law enforcement knows that guy, right? And then you look back at it, and it starts to develop from things we've done, things we've seen, just like in the military. Now, back in my day, 1985, 86, you get in a shooting, we go through the standard operation procedure for the agency, and those who, you know, come out and investigate it. And, you know, God, back then they took your gun from you and they put you in the back of a black and white police car.
You're almost like the suspect.
Yeah, and you sat there until the attorney got there, right? And then you were on leave for a period of time until the investigation was cleared, right? But it was a thing where, all right, John got in a shooting, so, you know, let's give him a call, see how he's doing.
Right.
All right. Well, let's go out. Let's go hang out. We'll drink some beers and, you know, do some shots, make you feel better, you know.
Reduce a little stress.
Reduce the stress that you're under, you know. And at that time, that was the counseling.
That was the EAP of the
That was
of the 90s.
exactly. That was your EAP
80s, I'm
of
sorry.
the 80s, early 90s. Okay, that when, you know, when something happened bad to you on the job, you got with your buddies, and you went out to that specific location, and you hammered them.
Yeah.
And the next day, you got up and you were still trashed, but guess what?
Nah, everything sits
Everything's still there.
Yep.
Everything's still there. That's why, in talking to you and talking to a couple other people from the agency, it's good to hear some of the changes that are being made for the guys and gals that are on the road now. Okay, because not only are you, you know, especially in this world that we're in today, where a lot of stuff is happening, right? And you start to question yourself if you're in the right position, you're in the right job, right? And yes, you watch the news every night, and there's cops going to work and not coming home, right? And all they're doing, some of them sitting in their police car writing a report. But today, at least, the medical profession and the psychology part of it comes into play. They're there. The agency within itself has done things to change some things around to where you have easier access to getting some of that relief, right?
Yes.
And I think it's a much better place than where he was back in the day.
Yeah, you know, those changes were really made recently. You know, like within the last, I don't know, say 2 years, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think the boss has started to realize, like, hey, listen, you know, there might be some underlying factors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like this guy or this girl may have some issues that we need to help with because, you know, they're our employee and we need to make sure they're healthy, you know. not only physically fit but healthy up here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that when they go home, there's no types of suicidal thoughts or anything like that because they're suffering through some kind of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right.
So yeah, like my agency has made some changes to try to ease the pain if anybody's going through any. If if people that we even have a specific room, that if you're feeling maybe overstressed out for the day or something like that, you may be having some personal issues at home, but you're bringing them to work. You allowed a certain amount of time in this room, to kind of get your stuff together and then maybe go back out on the street. But you also have, the EAP. We have I believe it's called a wellness officer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lieutenant, and he kind of makes sure that you're doing okay after you've gone through some kind of a violent encounter. That maybe whether deadly force situation, or you've been involved in some incident where you possibly might be getting fired or whatever. They try to make sure that you're okay during that process.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it works once. Like if I had an issue at work and they fired me because I was maybe drinking too much, whatever it may be, I don't know how they follow up once you're cut loose from the agency. And that's a good question to ask somebody
Sure.
that maybe has been through it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to depend on, I'm sure, on the structure, that whole structure, right? Look, if it's bad enough and we have to cut this guy loose, how do we continue? Is it up to us to continue to follow through with him? Okay, because he really has, once he's fired, quote, fired, he has no ties to the agency anymore.
Right.
So is it now our responsibility to continue to follow him through this journey of getting him straight? Or is it going to be up to him with what we've already done, and he has that realization that he needs the help? Now we cut him loose. Now it's up to him to continue that journey of getting repaired.
Correct.
That's going to come in probably, and I may be totally wrong when I say this, but that may come in if he's fired. Is he still covered under insurance? Okay, so now we get into all these
a lot of
areas,
legalities and stuff
so
like that.
It's a thing where, look, we got to take care of each other. We got to take care of each other because there's who else is going to, And it's just like the guys in the military, right? You read and you see things and listen to them speak on podcasts, right? Or up on stage when they're speaking to people at corporations, and you hear their path that they took and where they went and where they are now, right? And how they handle it. And military guys, special operations guys, police officers that see a lot of stuff, some of us take it better than others.
Sure.
Some of us take it better than others, but we still take it. The ones that take it better than the others still take it.
Sure. You're still going through the eyes and registering in the brain.
Yeah. We just might be better. We may have a better way of suppressing it, but sooner or later it could rise. Right. So it's always important to, when something's bothering you, to be able to talk to somebody about it.
And there's and again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, but there's so many different ways that people start displaying some of those, if symptoms is the word, like, hey, I have some issues, whether it be overindulging in alcohol or,
Yep.
You're partying too much.
It's water, by the way.
Yeah. Smells like Tito's.
Why did I know you were going to go there?
Actually, I'm sorry, it's Patron. But yeah, I think at least we've taken the right steps to start helping guys or girls that are in some kind of displaying some kind of symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. I think the important part is that we not let people try to manipulate the system.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have that.
I know,
You're
and
gonna
that
have
sucks. Because there's people out there that really need the help. Um, but if you're just having a bad day just because you don't want to be at work, and all of a sudden say you're stressed out and now you get to do certain things, you're abusing the system.
Yeah, here's your pacifier.
Yeah,
You know, give you a teddy bear and your pacifier. You can go sit in the corner somewhere.
Think about it from the time that you started, to say present, or to the time that you retired. We've had some suicides in our agency. Who knows what some of these guys were going through. I know of two off the top of my head that I rode. One was a senior guy that I rode with way down the South End. But it affects us in one way, shape, or form, and we take that home.
Yeah. And understand also that not only when you're active, but after you retire. After you retire, you still have, depending on what you've done, depending on what you've seen, just because you retire doesn't throw the switch and say, okay, and the agency doesn't bring you into a room, put a bucket on your head and clear your brain. Right? So after you retire, you still have stuff, that you could be dealing with. So again, going back to what you said earlier, how do we take care of this guy after he's retired? Now it's a different way versus the guy that got fired.
Right.
All right. We still have EAP. We still have the insurance that we can go seek out help. Right. But just because the guy is retired doesn't mean that he's still not going through some shit.
Sure. Now, and again, I don't know all the ins and outs of how my agency. I know up to a certain point, but that was the biggest question was after, and I'm sure they got to have something in place where once you separate from that agency, they don't just say, "Hey, man, all right, see you later. Hope you feel better." I would imagine there's some kind of
the retired guy or the fired guy.
The fired guy.
That's something that needs to be looked into.
Yeah, I would imagine they have something in place. They have to. But just wanted to touch on that because that is a big issue. Suicide rates have gone up. Again, just military and law enforcement.
And you get guys coming out of the military, coming into law enforcement. So when they come from the military and they've seen stuff and they already have it, and then they come into law enforcement. And, some people will say, well, I beg to differ with that because, we have a psychological exam that we have to give these guys before they become police officer. Great. I'm sure there's going to be military guys that get through the psychological examination, still have shit going on in their head from what they've seen overseas.
Sure.
And then when they're out on the street, things can happen, right?
I think those are the guys that you see during the hot calls, maybe an active shooter or guy still in the corner with a gun. Those are the guys that you see leading the charge.
Sure. Yeah.
I know I've seen it. But
because of experience.
Yeah,
right?
the experience,
absolutely.
it's not new. It's still it's fresh, from being in the military, and all they know is I need to get to that point A to point B quick.
Yeah.
And you have to follow me or get out the way. But yeah, so it's we've come a long ways from your era with dealing with that post-traumatic stress till today. What would you tell somebody who is separating, who's leaving, retiring? You retired, good terms. You left. You did your time.
Yeah, I did. I did a lot in my time. Right. I did a lot with the agency. It's on the street, right? Street crimes, patrol, street crimes, a little bit of narcotics, and then 16 years of SWAT, right? Um, you know, and I was in a training division, so that wasn't, anything really crazy. But I mean, it's when a guy's getting ready to retire, he should have his numbers in order, right, for his retirement. Check himself. How you feeling? How do you feel about retiring? It's going to be something that, especially if you've done it all your life, like me, I grew up wanting to do what I did.
Right.
Right. I mean, since I was about as tall as this table, right? So I did it. And then after it was done, and again, about 5 years before I retired, I started this, right? But because I knew I wanted to keep going and have my hands in something that was still somewhat, although it wasn't police work, I was able to train people to keep them safe. So that was my out. But separation, if you were really into the job, separation from that job, you miss it. And you get up, and when you're out and about and you see policemen, you slow down, you look, they're on traffic stops, you look
Right.
to see, where is he? How many people are in the car? Are they 4 deep? What is it? And it's still there. It will never leave you.
Your mind is always
Always going.
spinning.
I'm out and about, and my head is on a swivel still. I never get complacent. I carry a firearm everywhere I go, and it's just when I step into a building, I look, and I'm always thinking, and it's just something that I believe after a certain period of time is embedded in us.
Sure.
And when you go out to dinner with your wife, where do you sit?
Oh, she already knows.
Okay. All right. And
She's like, nope.
That's the first
Dad's
thing.
got to have the outside edge, and he's got to be facing this way.
Absolutely.
And everybody chuckles.
I go out to dinner with her, and I let her approach the table first 99% of the time, and she may go to that back end, and then she'll stop. She'll look at me and go, oh, here, I'll switch with you.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I think that's really cool because she
Absolutely.
knows, but I'm working with her now. I've created a friggin' monster, but she is starting to almost turn into me with when she's out and about. She's always looking at stuff. She's always prepared, but I think with guys that are retiring, you just have to, you have to understand, you have to have something else to do. And I think I said it in one of our other podcasts. You can't think that you're just going to sit down and retire and sit on the beach.
No.
Or sit in your country home someplace and sip bourbon or pina coladas on the beach, and that's going to be it.
I mean, that sounds like fun, but
Absolutely.
you
And
might be able to do that for what?
about a year.
About a year, you think?
Yeah, I say about a year. Then you know what? Our way, the way we are, we're gonna get bored. And it's gonna be, man, I gotta move.
Yeah,
I gotta
gotta
do
move.
something. I've got to do something. And for anything, we are at a high speed. We're alpha people, right? I was gonna say alpha males, but there's females in the business too. We're all alpha, or we wouldn't be in this business. So now we run with this pack all these years, right? And now the brakes get put on, the pack keeps going, and you peel. How many can deal with that?
No.
Right? So, but when you peel off and you become that lone guy or gal, you need something else. You need to pick up something else and have it in play when you retire. Because it's going to, I'm telling you, how many guys do we know that retire and Christ, they're dead in 2 years,
Yeah.
Because they don't do anything. All right. So you have to be able to, you have to fall into something else. Right. And for me, it was my hand-to-hand stuff, my combatives, my martial arts stuff, teaching other people, and shooting. Right. And with the shoot house, still going through the shoot house, training people to defend their homes. And that was part of me. So that's what kept me going. And that's still what keeps me going.
And talking about pumping those brakes. Because I remember coming home many times, and you said our minds are always spinning, right? Mm-hmm. Even after you get done, you're on your way home, it's your Friday, but I'm already thinking of my Monday. And it's kind of crazy that maybe I say it. I'm sure a lot of people think the same way, mm-hmm. but I'm on my way home, and I'm like, shit, I got to do this on Monday. I got to make sure I do this. I got to do that. And it's only my Friday, right? It's your first day off. But your brain, and I know my wife has always said, like, why don't you relax? Why don't you go do this? Why don't you go do that? I may go do something, but while I'm in the process of having a good time, it'll pop in my head. I got to do this.
Yeah. That's just the way we're built.
Yeah. And like you said, it's just how you deal with it. Mm-hmm. We can't put ourselves in a closet and just hide there after we retire, and hopefully, just get your retirement check and do whatever you're gonna do with it. Yeah. You have to have a plan B.
Yeah, you do. And my plan B was what I do now. My plan B may not be a plan B for everybody else.
Sure.
Right. But I think when you retire, you've got to look at something that you enjoy doing, like on the side, and keep doing it. Make it up. Take your hobby and explode it. Blow it up and make it bigger, right? To keep your mind occupied. And that brings me to what you were talking about when you're on your Friday and you're thinking about your Monday. We had two different things that we did, right? With the locker room. We have a nice locker room. It's my Friday, whether it's last hour of the midnight shift or I'm getting off at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, depending on when the day shift ends. Get changed into your civilian clothes at the locker and go home on your Friday? Or do you drive home in your uniform and get changed at home? Okay? And I bring this up because it was brought up to me. It was brought up to me when I walked in the door at home. She would start with her day. Hey, this is what happened today, and this, and this. And I'm like, I'm still on the street.
Yes.
Right? And she was new to the police world. Right? And it got to the point where, yeah. And what she was saying was going in this year and out this year.
Absolutely.
Right? And she would look at me, and then it got to the point where I would say, look, before you start telling me about your day, just give me 5 minutes to get out of this uniform.
To decompress.
And, just let me get out, get a shower. Because it was a process for me. I shed the uniform, and then I shed all, in the shower, I shed all the shit.
Sure.
And then I come out, and I'm
fresh.
Yep. And I'm ready for my 4 days off, where I wasn't like you. I wasn't really thinking. I really didn't think about my Monday. I looked at my 4 days because I was running a business.
Right.
So it was like, all right, got to get to the gym. I got to train, and I got people coming that I have to train. Yep. Right. So, but my thing with her would be, look, when I come in the door, I just need to get my uniform off, and I got to get back to being me. Right. Because when I'm back to being me, I'm not Sergeant Riddle. I'm John. Because when I'm Sergeant Riddle, to you, we don't like each other.
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And so I that was just my process, man. Everybody's process might be different, but that was my process. And then she got to the point where she's like, when I would walk in the door, you know, we'd say hello, say our hellos, and then it would be, you know, go get changed.
Yeah, don't say anything else. Just say
She
hello.
would just tell me, go
I'll
get
see
changed.
you in half an hour.
Yeah, and that would be it. And then, you know, but that's the routine we got down.
Hey, so hopefully for all the officers that are looking at this podcast, hearing or watching it, this is the time to bring your significant other
Mm-hmm.
and replay what we just said, and I think you will be all right.
Yeah, unless you get, and you know, I don't know if you have a take home car or not. If you
Pretty
do,
much everybody does.
everybody does
nowadays,
now?
Yeah.
So
pretty much.
you know, maybe you're driving home in your take home car, in your civilian clothes. All right, if you took that time at the locker to get changed out, take that uniform balled up, throw it in your gym bag because it's got to go to the dry cleaner, and then jump in your unit and drive home. That can be your decompression also. Turn the damn radio off. You know, don't be listening to the radio when you're out of limits, right? City limits where you work. But you know, it's just that's a different way, I guess, that you can compress too.
I thought you were gonna, when you started talking about locker,
Mhm.
I thought you were gonna give me a different analogy. I thought which I was gonna say, oh yeah, I kind of like that. I figure you said, okay, I go to the station. It's your last hour. Whatever. You're out of service. You go in your locker. You throw that blue bag in one locker, right?
Mm-hmm.
You grab your civvies out, and you drive home, and that's that change right there.
Mhm.
You know, but of course, the uniform has to get clean, so you do
Sure.
have to take it home, take it in the bag.
Throw it in your gym bag, right? So, you know, and then once you're home, I'm a firm believer. You gotta, you know, look. I'm not a relationship expert by any means, and being a cop.
Dr.
Okay,
Phil.
I've been through a couple. All right, I've been through a few rounds. So, you know, it's a thing where when you get home and you start to decompress, leave the job at the job and spend the time with the family, with your girlfriend, your wife, and have that quality time. That's huge, you know, because if you don't,
You're gonna have issues.
you're going to have issues. It's going to slowly roll and build. And then down the road, you're going to start having issues, you know, and you know, between military and law enforcement, we lose relationships, right? So there's ways of trying to break that spell, you know.
No.
So
I think that's big time right there.
Mhm.
You know, great advice to any young officer that might be listening.
yeah, shit. Even the older guys,
Yeah.
you know, the guys that are in the prime right now of doing what they're doing. Check yourself. Check yourself. See where you are physically, spiritually, right? And I'm not really a big,
Right.
you know, but, you know, look at that and where you are with your relationship and you know, where you are with your maker and where you are with you, because it's really important, because all three of those are going to help you motor through your career and your life.
Great advice. Great advice.
I
So,
think I'm going to be a counselor.
oh God, Lord help us. Hey, good morning. My name is John Riddle. Been through a few. So what's your first
Been
question?
there, done that. What do you want to talk about?
Guns or relationship?
Yeah.
Which one?
We're beating people.
Anything else you want to tell, explain?
No, I mean,
We hit the bullets that I wanted to hit for today.
Mhm.
We wanted to hit. You know, being happy while you're doing his job,
Mhm.
right? Yes, every day is not going to be glorious.
No,
You're going to see some things that a normal civilian will never see,
absolutely.
right? Maybe in movies or something to that nature, but you're going to see it. You're going to get your hands dirty.
Mhm.
You got to figure out a way how to deal with it.
Yep.
And I don't mean by yourself, right?
Right,
We
yeah.
have the resources nowadays and people that can help you deal with those issues.
Right. It's not that we're saying, look, you're going to see some bad shit, deal with it.
Right.
Not that.
No, absolutely not.
that. Because I can tell you some of the things I've seen in my 28 years, I still see it. Some of them, you know, I deal with it. You know, it's not that bad, you know.
Right.
But I mean, it's just you're going to see stuff, and you're going to try to suppress it as best you can at that time, and then depending on you, because like I said earlier, everybody's different. Everybody's structure is different, right? Everybody's mindset is different on how they handle things. So, and like you were saying, the agencies are better. Your agency is better. Our agency is better than it was with helping guys secure themselves. You know, when they do go through bad things, and you know, but in this job, you're going to see some shit. depending on where you are, right? You may see some things that happen in one side of the city that may not happen in the other side of the city, right?
Sure.
So if you're riding in the north end, you're going to see more because it's busier.
It's a busy city.
Right.
I mean, busy portion of the city.
Right. If you're in the south end of the city, it's a little more quiet. Okay. But hey, I rode in the south end of the city Thanksgiving Day, and I saw some horrific thing take place. All right. It was the aftermath, but, you know, it's, you know, very quiet Thanksgiving morning. Rookie officer riding deep in the south end calls me on the radio. And he tells me, hey, I got this girl. She said, there's a couple bodies in this house that were murdered. I'm like, really? So I said, where is it? So I go down. I was like the senior guy in the south end. And I ride down there. And lo and behold, she's there with him. And I'm like, it really just sounded off the wall, right? Like this is something, like you said, this is something like out of a movie, right? So she says, no, they're in that house right there. Very, very cool about it, you know, very nonchalant. And that's what that kind of threw me, you know, because you expect to see people
frantic,
just crazy crying, tears coming out of their eyes. You know, as a young lady, I figured she'd be, you know, breaking down, and nothing. Yeah, they're in the house there. So, you know, we follow standard operating procedure. We go into the house, and because of the situation, we're armed policemen. We go in with the guns out, and I'm directing this young kid, you know, and I've got other guys coming, and we're moving through the house, and I was about 10 feet into the house, and I stepped over a body, you know, and I said, okay, that's one, and kept moving around. Oh, there's another one, right? And I think there was three. So I think I stepped over one. I said, I came back out. We checked the whole house. I said, I only found one person in there. She goes, no, there's two more. So I'm like, you know, now I got to go back in. You know, I got to go back in and see this shit again because it was not nice looking. So I go back in, forced to step over this person again. And I go in, and she told me upon my entry the second time, look in the shower. So this girl had intimate knowledge. Right. And she's very calm, cool, and collected over this whole thing, you know. And like I said, everybody reacts differently, right? So I go in to the bathroom, and I'm looking around, and it's a stall shower with a curtain. I pull it open. There you have it. Execution style in the shower, two people. And I'm like, oh, you know. And I'll remember that. I remember that every day as clear as a bell.
Sure.
As clear as a bell, you know. And that's just one thing, right? So how people handle that in our profession, everybody's going to handle it differently. And that's where, you know, if you need to talk to somebody, you better talk to somebody.
Don't be embarrassed. Don't be afraid of what anyone is going to say.
Mm-mm. And you can't think that, well, I'll just swallow this pill. This is part of the job, and I'm going to do this. No.
No.
Mm-mm.
It'll be like a cancer just building up in your body.
Absolutely.
And it'll just get worse and worse and worse, and God forbid what could happen.
Yeah.
So if you can nip it in the butt, seek help.
Mm-hmm.
The resources are there, like we said.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Episode 3 touched on some good points.
Yeah, and again, like we always say at the end of these podcasts, if you're listening to this, please comment. All right, if you're a cop, I don't care where you are, give us your comments, good, bad, or indifferent. Again, we're cops.
We're not experts.
And yes, definitely,
we're giving experts. You our portion of what we've been through.
Mm-hmm.
Give us something of what maybe you've been through, and that might relate to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I'd like to get some feedback from some people.
Sure.
Just on the conversation and what they want to hear. What they want to hear next. Because we can roll this, and we're already preparing to roll it
right
into the next episode. But I'm real interested in hearing what people have to say.
I think, this. And before we end, I think two of the biggest points that or topics that we talked about were you having your little private time when you get home,
mm-hmm.
right? Your decompression time,
mm-hmm.
so it doesn't create any unwanted stress between you and your spouse or significant other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the PTSD stuff, the help is there. Like I can tell you of 2 people that have committed suicide, and it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you've known them certain other
mm-hmm.
people.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Definitely.
I couldn't say that enough. So
definitely, and it's with things that you see, like my story just now, and you go home, and your girlfriend or your wife says, "Hey, how was your day? This is what I did today." Just swallow and think about what you're going to say before you say it.
Yeah.
All
So
right,
we're good, buddy.
We good, man. All right, I thought it was a good one.
Again, different venue. Hopefully, you guys like the change. We're gonna be setting stuff up differently, or we can do several different backgrounds. But it's a different place. First time.
I like this place.
They got a good vibe in here.
Mm-hmm.
Makes you want to just hang out.
It does.
I wish we could show the camera around and show everybody what it looks like, but it's a really cool place in downtown West Palm. So,
all right, man.
John, it was a great time, pleasure. Again,
Definitely.
And we'll get ready for
episode
number 4.
Number 4.